she stepped off the stagecoach with nothing but a wedding ring on a chain and a pistol buried deep in her satchel. Her name was Pearl, and she'd come to the town of Potato Creek to vanish. A widow with too many secrets, too many scars, and nowhere else to go. But before the dust even settled on her boots, they found her. Men in white dusters, eyes like wolves, and hands too quick to stop. They took everything, except her life. One of them, scarred, silent, spared her, looked her in the eye like he knew her soul. And just like that, the past she'd tried to outrun caught up. Her dead husband, maybe not as dead or as innocent as she thought. The outlaw who spared her, turns out he's family to the only man she might ever trust again. And the map buried in her coat? It's worth killing for. This isn't just a story about revenge. It's about what happens when a woman finds out love might have been a lie, but her own strength is not. Gunfire, betrayal, secrets, and the kind of kiss that leaves a scar deeper than any bullet. She came to disappear. But in Potato Creek, she found herself instead. This is dust on her heart. The stagecoach groaned to a halt like an old man coughing up his last breath. Dust curled around the wheels, catching in the folds of Pearl's dress and the corners of her eyes. She stepped down slow, like every movement had weight, because it did. 10 years of pain rode with her, stuffed between letters she never mailed and memories she couldn't shake. Potato Creek wasn't much to look at. A crooked row of storefronts, a church steeple tilting like it lost a fight with the wind, and a saloon that never seemed to sleep. Just the kind of place a woman could vanish without making much of a splash. That was the point. Pearl adjusted the strap of her satchel, took a deep breath, and stepped onto the main street like it might swallow her whole. Behind her, the driver hollered something about freight and whiskey barrels. She didn't care. All she had left was in that satchel, 2 dresses, a pistol that used to belong to her husband, and a silver ring she wore on a chain now, close to her heart but far from her plans. Her boots clicked against the boardwalk as she passed the post office, then the millinery. Nobody looked twice. That was good, or it should have been. Then she felt it. A stillness. She turned. 3 men stood at the edge of the alley watching. Not outright staring, just long enough to make her skin prickle. They wore white dusters that hung like ghosts off their shoulders. One of them stepped forward. "You new in town, miss?" Pearl's hand brushed the chain around her neck. "Just passing through." He grinned, but there was no kindness in it. "Ain't we all?" The next thing happened fast. Too fast. A hand yanked her satchel from behind. She spun, reaching for her pistol, but it wasn't there. She'd packed it, buried in fabric. Useless. The man in front of her grabbed her wrist. Easy now. His breath smelled like whiskey and chewing tobacco. Pearl fought, kicked, bit. Someone laughed. Then, just as quick as it started, it stopped. One of them, the quiet one in the back, stepped forward and grabbed the man's arm. "Leave her," he said. His voice was low even, almost gentle. The other men looked confused, but they backed off. Pearl met the quiet one's eyes. He had a scar that ran from his brow to his jaw. His eyes were strange, like a storm trying to remember how to rain. He held her gaze for one long moment, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the alley's shadow. They were gone before anyone noticed. Pearl dropped to her knees, catching her breath. Her satchel was gone, everything but the ring still hanging from her neck. Pearl made it to the sheriff's office an hour later. "I just got robbed," she said, voice flat. The sheriff was a stout man with a sunburned nose and a badge that looked like it had seen better days. He glanced up like she'd interrupted a good nap. "Didn't see nothing. You didn't get shot, so count yourself lucky." Pearl didn't argue. What was the point? She walked out into the street, empty now, the sun hanging low. The town smelled like horse sweat, cigar smoke, and dust. She found a room above the boarding house. It was small. The bed creaked like a lyre, but it had a window. She sat beside it for hours, watching the town go quiet. Somewhere out there, that quiet man with storm eyes had stopped her from losing more than her satchel. Why? She clutched the ring around her neck. This place was supposed to be her restart. But she hadn't even unpacked, and already she felt hunted. The morning after the robbery, Pearl's wrist throbbed like a broken promise. She wrapped it tight with a scrap of cloth and kept her head down. The boarding house served coffee thick enough to chew and eggs that might have once been food. She ate every bite. Hunger had a way of stripping pride. Outside, Potato Creek looked cleaner in the daylight, but no friendlier. Folks nodded, smiled politely, then kept their distance. A woman alone was either pitied or whispered about, and Pearl was already catching both. She didn't mind. She hadn't come for friends. She came to disappear. But the man with the scar, she couldn't shake his face. He looked right at her like he knew her story without asking. And that voice, low, calm, dangerous the way still water hides the deepest holes. She didn't sleep much the night before, kept replaying it, how he stopped them, how he turned his back, how he didn't take a damn thing. By mid-afternoon, the sun bore down like judgment. Pearl walked the edge of town, past the mill and into the alleys behind the saloon. Dust swirled at her boots. Broken glass glittered beneath a boarded-up window. She shouldn't be there. That's what made her keep going. Then she saw him. Across the alley, leaning against a post behind the saloon like he belonged to the shadows. Same coat, same scar, same look, like he saw everything and said nothing. Pearl froze. Her heart kicked once, twice, then tried to outrun her ribs. He saw her, tipped his hat, didn't smile. She stepped forward. "You spared me," she said. "Why?" He didn't answer. "Say something," she pressed, heat rising in her throat. He stepped closer, boots whispering against dirt. "I didn't come to rob you," he said. Pearl squinted. "You were with them." His jaw clenched. "Not by choice." "Then what were you doing there?" He looked away. "Looking for something I lost." "Find it?" His eyes landed on her again. "Not yet." Pearl took a shaky breath. Her hand hovered near her side where the pistol would have been, if she'd dared to carry it today. He noticed. "Relax," he said. "If I wanted to hurt you, I would have." "That's not as comforting as you think." He almost smiled. Almost. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing behind the saloon, swallowed by the sunburned light. Pearl stood there long after he left. A few drunks wandered out the back of the saloon. None looked twice at her. But one word lingered in her mind. Not by choice. What did that mean? She headed back toward town, mind racing faster than her boots could carry her. That night, she asked around. The bartender at the Rusted Spur knew things. He had a gut like a barrel and a memory like a noose. "You ever heard of men in white dusters?" Pearl asked, setting down 2 coins. He poured a drink slow, like he had all day. "Hollow riders," he muttered. "Boys ride in, take what they want, leave nothing but ash and regrets. Anyone know who they are?" He eyed her. "Ain't smart to ask." Pearl held his gaze. "Humor me." He leaned closer. "Word is, they don't work alone. Someone sends them, picks targets, gets a cut." Pearl's blood ran cold. "And no one stops them?" "They leave no one alive, except you, I guess." She didn't drink the whiskey he poured, just left it and walked out. That night she dreamt of fire. A cabin burning, her husband screaming, the ring on the floor. But when she looked closer, it wasn't her husband in the flames. It was the man with the scar. She woke up shaking, hand clutching her neck, the chain digging into her skin. In the silence of her rented room, she whispered to herself, "Why didn't he take the ring?" That question, it didn't just haunt her. It was about to change everything. Pearl had walked farther than she meant to. The hills outside Potato Creek were dry and endless, rising and falling like old regrets. She told herself she was clearing her head, but truth was, she was running from the faces in her dreams. The scarred man haunted her, not just his face, but the way he made her feel. Seen, like she was more than just a widow chasing ghosts. The wind kicked up grit, biting at her cheeks. She pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders and pushed forward. Then her boot caught on a stone buried in the trail. She fell hard, elbow scraped, ankle twisted. "Damn," she muttered, breath hitching as pain flared sharp. She tried to stand, but her ankle buckled. The world tilted. Then she heard it. Hooves. A horse was coming fast. She reached for the small knife hidden in her boot, breath shallow. But when the rider came into view, something in her paused. He wasn't like the men in town. He sat straight in the saddle, one hand loose on the reins, the other resting near a holstered pistol, but not on it. His face was weathered, not cruel. His eyes were steady and wide-set beneath a bent-brim hat. He saw her, and without a word, swung down from his horse. "You all right, ma'am?" His voice was deep, slow, and full of concern. Pearl studied him, strong jaw, calloused hands, a gentle wrinkle at the corners of his eyes. He wasn't young, mid-40s maybe, but solid. "I'm fine," she said, wincing as she tried to rise again. He stepped closer. "You're not." "I don't need help." He smiled softly. That's what all stubborn women say before they pass out. Against her better judgment, she let him offer his arm. His grip was warm, firm, but careful. He helped her sit on a rock and pulled a flask from his coat. "Water," he said, handing it over. She drank, watching him over the rim. "You from around here?" He nodded. "Levi Maddox. I keep to myself mostly. Run a small spread west of town." "Pearl Vaughn," she said, then regretted giving her real name. But he didn't flinch. Didn't seem to recognize it. "What were you doing out here?" he asked. "Looking for peace, maybe." He raised a brow. "Find any?" She looked at the sky. "Not yet." He helped her onto his horse, walking beside her as they made their way back toward town. "I can ride," she said. "Not with that ankle. Let me do the walking." She didn't argue. It was nice for once, not to fight every inch of her life. As they walked, he asked nothing more. No questions about where she came from, or why she looked like she hadn't slept in days. She liked that. Back at the boarding house, he helped her down, careful not to touch more than needed. "Thank you," she said. He tipped his hat. "Town can be rough. If you ever need anything, I'm not far." Then he was gone. Just like that. No expectations, no sideways glances, just kindness. That night, Pearl sat by the window, the pain in her ankle dulled, but her heart sharper than ever. Levi Maddox. There was something steady about him, a man built from quiet strength. But still, she couldn't shake the other one. The scarred man, the one who let her live, the one who walked with ghosts. She wrapped the ring chain tighter around her fingers. 2 men. One saved her. The other spared her. And for the first time in a long while, she didn't know which one she was more afraid of. The night air in Potato Creek had a bite to it. Pearl couldn't sleep. She paced the wooden floor in her stocking feet, the boards creaking under each step like they were tired of carrying weight that didn't belong. Her ankle throbbed less now, but her mind, it was running full gallop. Levi Maddox. She'd said his name out loud once just to taste it. It felt steady, like boots planted deep in good earth. But she wasn't made for steady. She was made for ashes and aftermath. At some point past midnight, she finally sat on the edge of the bed, pulled the chain from around her neck, and let the ring fall into her palm. It was simple. Silver. A tiny nick on the inside where her husband had once dropped it on a stone floor during an argument. She'd kept it, worn it, hated it. It was the only thing that stayed after the fire. She clutched it tight, let the pain ground her. And that's when the knock came. Software once. She froze. Another knock. She crossed the room and opened the door an inch. No one was there. But something was. An envelope. Thin, yellowed, and sealed with a dark smudge. She stepped into the hallway, looked both ways. Empty. Heart hammering, she took the envelope back inside and sat at the edge of the bed. Hands trembling, she opened it. Inside was no note. Just her ring. The one she'd been holding a moment ago. She looked down at her palm. Empty. Pearl shot to her feet, the ring and chain in her lap spilling onto the floor. The second ring, the real one, gleamed beneath her foot. She bent down, picked it up. Identical. Same nick, same weight, same curse. She didn't sleep the rest of the night. By morning, her face looked carved from stone. She walked straight to the sheriff's office and laid both rings on the desk. "What am I looking at?" he asked, annoyed. "One of those was returned to me in the night, after it disappeared." He looked at her, then at the rings. "You saying someone broke into your room to return a piece of jewelry?" "I'm saying someone's watching me." He scratched his beard. Probably a joke, or someone messing with a pretty face. Pearl leaned in close. "You think I came out here to be toyed with?" He leaned back. "Lady, I think you came out here with baggage, and I ain't got the hands to unpack it." She gathered both rings and left. Pearl found Levi at the livery stable. He was brushing down his horse, sleeves rolled up, forearms taut with quiet labor. When he saw her, something in his expression softened. "You all right?" he asked. "No," she said, voice tight. "I'm being followed." He set the brush down. "Tell me." She explained what happened. The ring, the knock, the empty hallway. He didn't interrupt, just listened. When she finished, she expected him to brush it off, the way the sheriff did. But Levi only asked, "Do you think it's him?" Her stomach nodded. The scarred man. He nodded. "I don't know," she whispered. "But it feels personal." Later, she sat at the general store, pretending to flip through a catalog, watching the street from the corner of her eye. And there he was. Across the way. Near the church steps. White duster, scar, shadow. Watching. He didn't move. Didn't speak. But he saw her. And in that look, Pearl felt her entire past unravel like a spool kicked down a dirt hill. She wanted to run, wanted to scream. But her feet wouldn't move. Her breath caught in her throat. Because the truth hit her like a fist to the chest. That man didn't just spare her. He knew her. The dress felt like a lie. Pearl smoothed the satin over her hips and stared at her reflection in the cracked mirror above the saloon's backroom wash basin. It clung too tight, dipped too low, and made her feel like a woman she no longer recognized. But that was the point. She needed to be noticed. The bartender's warning stuck in her mind like a thorn. The hollow riders don't work alone. Someone was feeding them names, routes, targets, and the saloon. That's where deals got made and sins were passed off with laughter and a toast. Tonight, she'd play the part. The rusted spur was alive with noise and smoke. Piano music danced beneath clinking glasses and rowdy laughter. The scent of whiskey, sweat, and cigars clung to the air thick as fog. Heads turned when she stepped inside. Pearl kept her chin high, eyes steady, heart a mess of knots. At the bar, she ordered a whiskey, neat. The barkeep gave her a look, then poured. "Didn't peg you for the type," he said. "I wasn't," she replied. She nursed the drink slow, scanning the room. Levi was there, tucked into a corner booth, nursing a drink he hadn't touched. His jaw was tight, his gaze darker than any storm. He didn't like this, didn't want her here. But he hadn't stopped her either. And she was too far in now. Then she saw him. Mo, the scarred man. Sitting at a poker table, legs stretched out, coat draped over the chair behind him. He shuffled cards one-handed, a lazy rhythm like he was waiting for something or someone. Pearl took her glass and crossed the floor, every step loud in her own ears. When she reached the table, he didn't look up, just gestured to the empty chair beside him. She sat. The other players gave her quick glances, but no one said a word. She leaned in, voice low. "You followed me. Sent the ring." He didn't blink. "Didn't want you to forget." "Forget what?" His eyes finally met hers. Who he really was. Pearl's blood went cold. "My husband?" The man's jaw clenched. "He was one of us." "No," she whispered. "He wasn't. He ran with the Hollow Riders for 2 years, until he turned soft. Until you." Pearl felt the world spin beneath her boots. "You're lying." The man tossed a card onto the table. "Believe what you want, but we don't forget our own, even the dead ones." Pearl stood fast, breath ragged. Levi was already beside her. "What did he say?" he asked. "Nothing that matters," she said, voice hoarse. But it mattered. It mattered too much. They stepped out into the cool night, the saloon's glow behind them. Levi caught her wrist gently. "Tell me." Her eyes searched his. "He said Jack, my husband, was one of them." Levi's face hardened, but he didn't speak. You knew, she accused. No, he said, and it sounded honest. But I wondered. Pearl turned from him, needing air. I can't trust anyone in this town. You can trust me. She looked back, fire in her chest. You barely know me. He stepped closer. I know you've been fighting your own damn shadow since the day you arrived. I know your hands shake when you sleep. I know you haven't run, even when every instinct tells you to. He was too close now. Too warm. And I know, he said, voice low, that if I kissed you right now, you wouldn't stop me. Pearl's breath caught. Their faces were inches apart. Her body burned where his voice touched. Then, movement from the alley. Levi stepped back. Pearl blinked, pulse pounding. The scarred man was gone. But he'd left her something behind. Folded paper tucked beneath her whiskey glass. She opened it. 3 words, scrawled in rough ink. He deserved it. Pearl slammed the door to her room so hard the walls shook. She clutched the note in her hand. He deserved it, and stared at it like it might burst into flames if she glared hard enough. Her husband, Jack, the man she had mourned, the man she'd escaped from after the fire. Had he really been part of the Hollow Riders? Had the man she once loved turned into a monster behind her back? The thought twisted inside her like barbed wire. She didn't sleep. By sunrise, she was outside Levi's place, fists clenched, rage buzzing in her skin. He opened the door shirtless, sleep still on his face. His body was marked with old scars, stories written in flesh. But she didn't come to admire them. You lied to me. He rubbed his eyes. Pearl. You knew what Jack was, or you guessed. And you let me fall into this mess blind. Levi sighed, stepping aside. Come inside, before the whole damn town hears. Oh, she stormed past him. I trusted you. You barely know me, he said, echoing her own words from the night before. She spun on him. Exactly. So why the hell do I feel like I need you? Silence hung heavy between them. He took a step closer, because we're both broken in ways that match. Pearl's lip trembled. Don't do that. Do what? Say things like that. Say things that make me want to stay. His hand reached out, thumb grazing her cheek. She should have pulled away. But she didn't. You really didn't know? She asked, voice softer now. I knew your husband's name, Jack Vaughn. I knew he'd been in town years ago, but I didn't know who he was to the riders. Then what did you know? He exhaled slow. I knew a man who rode with them once. My brother. Pearl blinked. Your brother? He was one of the worst, and I rode with him for a time. I didn't rob or kill, but I didn't stop him either. Not until it was too late. That's why you recognized them, she said. That's why you helped me. I've been trying to put things right, he said. But ghosts don't go quiet just because you change your boots. Pearl let her guard drop just an inch. Mole. I buried Jack, she said. Or I thought I did. I thought the fire took everything. But maybe it didn't. She looked at him, eyes glossy with confusion and pain. Who am I if the man I loved was a lie? You're whoever you want to be, Pearl. The silence came again, but this time it wasn't cold. It was charged, heavy with something neither of them dared name. Then Levi stepped closer. You want me to stop? You say it now. he said, voice hoarse. She didn't speak. And he kissed her. Hard, deep, full of fire and ache. Pearl's hands balled against his chest, caught between fury and need. Her heart beat so loud it drowned out the crackling fire behind them. She kissed him back, hungry, wild, desperate to feel something real. When they broke apart, breathless, her forehead rested against his. "Damn you," she whispered. "Damn you for being the only thing that feels honest." He smiled, just barely. "I'll take that." She stayed for hours, curled up beside him in silence, both of them tangled in warmth and war. But before dawn, she rose and found something under her coat near the door. A letter. Folded clean. Her name on the front in bold strokes. Inside was a note. "You think a kiss can save you, Pearl? The Hollow Riders are coming. And this time they're not after your gold. They want what he hid. And you've already touched it." The letter burned a hole in her pocket the whole walk out to the edge of town. Pearl didn't say a word to Levi. She just left. There were things she needed to face alone. Truths that didn't fit inside four walls or between warm sheets. The air grew heavy as she reached the edge of Potato Creek, where the town thinned and the wild took over again. Trees stood crooked like drunk men, and the earth smelled scorched, like old sins still smoking beneath the surface. Then she saw it. The old house, or what was left of it. Charred bones of timber, ash scattered across the ground like the sky had once wept fire. Pearl's stomach dropped. She knew this place. She had been here. Once, long ago, when Jack was still alive. She stepped through the ruins, boots crunching on glass and soot. Her fingers brushed a warped piece of iron nailed to a blackened post. Oh, the doorframe. Memories came like lashes. Jack's laughter in the kitchen, his arms around her waist. That one night they fought and he stormed out, only to return with wildflowers and promises. Lies. All of them. Pearl's hands shook as she pulled the letter from her pocket and reread it. They want what he hid, and you've already touched it. What did Jack hide, and why did they think she had it? Suddenly, footsteps behind her. She spun. It was Levi. His face was unreadable, but his eyes, those steady, tired eyes, looked like they already knew. "You followed me," she said. "You shouldn't be out here alone." Pearl held up the letter. "You didn't leave this?" He shook his head. "No." She stared at the house. "This was our first place, Jack and I. He told me it burned down from lightning. I never came back. I never questioned him." Levi stepped forward. "It wasn't lightning." "What?" "It was the Hollow Riders. They came for him. He got away. You were gone visiting family, right?" Pearl nodded slowly. "He told them you had something they wanted," Levi continued. "He left that night, and the house went up hours later." Pearl's knees buckled. Levi caught her before she hit the ground. "All this time," she gasped. "He lied about everything." "Not everything," Levi whispered. "He loved you. I believe that." "How do you know?" Levi hesitated, then looked away. "Because my brother was there that night." Pearl's blood froze. "Your brother," she whispered. "The scarred man?" Levi nodded. "He told me Jack begged to save you. Said if they let him live, you'd disappear, never know the truth. Pearl looked down at the dirt where the house once stood. "I already knew," she said, voice quiet. "I just didn't want to believe it." They stood in silence for a long while, wind rustling through the dead branches. Then Levi pulled something from his coat. A small folded piece of parchment, yellowed, cracked. He left this with me years ago. Told me to give it to you if you ever showed up again." Pearl opened it. Inside was a map, and beneath it, scrawled in Jack's handwriting, "They'll never stop looking, but if she finds this, maybe she'll finally understand why I had to run." Pearl's eyes burned. So many lies. So many buried truths. And yet part of her heart still cracked wide at the memory of Jack's smile. The way he held her. The soft, trembling apologies he whispered after every storm. "Oh," she looked up at Levi. "What if I don't want to understand?" He stepped close, then burn the damn map and walk away. She looked at the flames still clinging to the edges of the past and thought, maybe she should. But she didn't. She folded the map and tucked it into her coat. Because understanding wasn't for her anymore. It was for the part of her that still hoped all this pain had a reason. Pearl walked into the barn like a woman who'd already died once. Dust clung to her coat. The pistol at her side felt heavier than usual, like it knew what she was about to do. Her boots echoed against the wooden planks as she stepped into the den of wolves. The Hollow Riders were waiting. 3 of them, lean, mean, and staring like they'd already measured her grave. At the back, half in shadow, sat the scarred man, Levi's brother. He didn't rise, just watched her with that same quiet storm in his eyes. "You came," he said. "I want to talk," Pearl answered. One of the others chuckled. "That right? We figured you'd be gone by now." Pearl pulled a folded letter from her coat, tossed it to the floor between them. "Jack left this. He said you'd be coming. Said if I ever found it, I'd understand why he ran." The scarred man didn't move. And, "I understand now," Pearl said. "He was a liar, a coward. But he was right about one thing, whatever you're after. It's dangerous." One of the men spit in the dirt. "We don't need a lecture, sweetheart." Pearl ignored him. "You want the map? Fine, but you leave this town alone. You leave Levi alone, and you never come near me again." The scarred man tilted his head. "You offering a trade?" "I'm offering a bargain," she said. "The map, in exchange for peace." Another chuckle. "You ain't in a place to bargain, missy." "I've got more than you think," Pearl said, her voice sharp now. "I've got Levi Maddox. I've got the law on my side, even if they're lazy. And I've got nothing left to lose. That makes me the most dangerous one here." Silence fell like a dropped hammer. Then the scarred man stood. "You remind me of him, you know," he said. "Jack, right before he broke." Pearl's fists clenched. "Then maybe I'll break you too." He smiled. "All right, widow. Bring the map tomorrow night. You'll get your piece." She left the barn with her spine straight and her stomach twisted. Levi met her at the edge of the woods. His face was pale with fury. "What the hell were you thinking?" "I was thinking they'd never stop unless I gave them something they wanted." He paced, running a hand through his hair. "You don't deal with devils, Pearl. You shoot them." "And then what?" She snapped. "Then we wait for more to come? They've got a network, Levi. Someone sent them. This goes deeper." He stopped, stepped close, his face inches from hers. I don't care how deep it goes. I care that they don't touch you. Her breath hitched. I don't need a hero, she whispered. I know, he said, voice rough, but I need you. And then he kissed her again. This time, it wasn't angry or wild. It was slow, gentle. It was the kind of kiss a man gives a woman when he knows he might not live to give her another. Pearl melted into it. Because right then, even with the world burning around them, it felt like the only thing that was real. They made love that night. It wasn't polished or perfect. It was raw, grief tangled with passion, guilt braided with need. Pearl felt every scar on Levi's body beneath her hands, and when he whispered her name like a prayer, she almost believed they'd survive this. But the dawn came too fast. And so did the price of her bargain. At sunrise, she stood alone at the edge of town with the map clutched in her hand, staring toward the hills where the Hollow Riders waited. The widow had made her deal. Now she'd find out what it would cost. The map felt heavy in Pearl's pocket, like it knew it was walking into betrayal. She stood in the clearing just outside town, heart pounding in time with every cricket chirp and distant coyote howl. The trees around her whispered with the wind, and the moon glared down like a silent witness to the blood that was about to be spilled. The Hollow Riders were late. Levi had followed her, of course. He said he wouldn't let her walk into this alone. He didn't understand. This was never going to be just her fight. It belonged to all of them now. A low whistle cut through the trees. Then they came. White dusters, grim faces, guns gleaming in the low light. The scarred man walked ahead of them all, his eyes locked on hers. You brought it? He asked. Pearl nodded once. And you keep your word? I always do, he said. Liar. She pulled out the map, unfolded it slowly, arms steady even though her knees threatened to buckle. He reached for it. And then everything went to hell. A gunshot cracked the silence. Someone screamed. Levi was on the ground, clutching his side. No! Pearl cried out, dropping to her knees beside him. Another shot rang out. Dust exploded near her boots. She looked up. Chaos had taken over. The Hollow Riders were shooting. Not just warning shots, real ones. The kind that end things. And it wasn't about the map anymore. It was about cleaning up. Levi's brother raised his weapon, pointed it directly at Levi. Don't! Pearl screamed. He hesitated. Just for a second. And that's all she needed. Pearl drew her pistol from under her coat and fired. The sound split the night. The bullet caught him high in the chest. He stumbled, looked at her, eyes wide, not with pain, but with something else. Regret? Recognition? Then he dropped. Pearl's breath caught in her throat. He'd shot Levi's brother. She looked down at Levi, blood soaking through his shirt. I didn't mean, she choked. He grabbed her wrist. It's not your fault. Levi, he was your brother. And he died a long time ago, he whispered. That wasn't him anymore. Behind them, the rest of the riders scattered. Some ran. A few stayed and were arrested by the town marshal and his men, who arrived late but loud, tipped off by a message Levi had sent the night before. Pearl stood in the silence that followed, covered in blood, ash, and smoke. The map was gone. Burned in the scuffle. And maybe that was for the best. Levi survived. Barely. Pearl sat beside his bed for 3 days, holding his hand, refusing to sleep until he opened his eyes. When he did, his first words were, "You didn't miss." She smiled through tears. "I was aiming for his heart. Don't know if I hit it." Levi turned his head slowly toward her. "You always do," he said. Later, when the town quieted and the wind returned to its usual gossiping through the trees, Pearl stood at the edge of the cemetery. A fresh grave lay before her. No name on the marker, just a single word etched in. Period. Brother. She laid a small flower down, stood in silence. Not to mourn, but to mark the end. Because bullets don't lie, and the past never buries itself. The sun crept over the hills like it was cautious to shine on a place that had seen so much pain. Pearl stood on the ridge just past the cemetery, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, her boots caked with frost and dirt. Her hair was down for once, and she let the wind carry it wherever it pleased. Levi stood a few feet behind her, still moving slow from the wound in his side. He didn't speak. He just stood there, like the earth had asked him to watch over her a while. Pearl didn't look back. She didn't need to. "Oh, I used to think the fire ended everything," she said quietly. "That once the house burned and Jack died, I'd never feel solid again, like I was made of ash too." Levi shifted his weight. "You're not ash, Pearl." She let out a slow breath. "No," she said. "I'm not." She turned to face him. In her hand was the silver wedding ring, the one Jack had given her, the one that came back when it should have stayed gone. "I held on to this like it meant something, like it could explain why he did what he did. But now I know." She dropped the ring into the dust at her feet. It was never about him. Levi stepped forward, took her hand. "I ain't asking you to forget him," he said, "but I'm here, if you want me." Pearl looked at their hands, rough, scarred, human. She squeezed his fingers gently. "I don't want a new start," she said. Levi blinked. "No?" She smiled. "I want something real. Starts wear out, but real things hold on." He nodded, a smile ghosting over his lips. "Then let's hold on." Weeks passed. The town of Potato Creek stopped whispering about the widow with fire in her eyes and started tipping their hats instead. Pearl reopened the old mercantile with Levi. Folks came to buy supplies and stayed for her sharp tongue and warm smile. The grave on the hill grew grass. The pain in her chest grew softer. Some nights she still dreamed of the riders, of fire and dust and gun smoke. But when she woke, Levi was there, breathing steady, warm beside her, alive. One morning, she rode out to the ridge alone. The wind met her like an old friend. She took a deep breath. There was dust on her boots, dust on her coat, and still, some dust on her heart. But she wasn't running anymore. She'd found what she was chasing. Not forgiveness, not revenge, just peace. And in a place like Potato Creek, that was worth its weight in gold. If this story stirred something in you, if you felt the grit, the heartbreak, and the fire in Pearl's fight, then don't write off just yet. Hit that like button to let us know you're with us. And subscribe to SaddleHorn Stories for more Western tales packed with heart, heat, and high stakes. Every story here is built for folks who believe strength is forged in fire, and love don't always come easy. We've got more stories coming down the trail. You won't want to miss them.